So I'm thinking, I didn't get a chance to talk to John today, but I'm thinking we'll probably do the special permit first, and then we'll just jump right into the pre-application conference.
Great. I believe Harry is here for Bear Mountain. Thank you, Harry. Welcome.
Okay. Hi, Harry. We're just waiting for a few other members to join us and then started.
Now I can say hello. Now I can say hello.
Great. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you as well.
Hi, Tony. Hi, Rachel.
Hello. Sorry, I'm backwards today. My monitors are switched. Taking a moment to get used to it. Andrew, did you send out the actual meeting information?
It should have been in the email that you got. I thought it was with the Google Drive link and in that same email. Let me double check because Pam asked the same question.
It's not. This meeting and last meeting I've had to pull from the agenda.
I apologize.
Yeah, there's no link, so I just sign on to Zoom US and plug in the numbers.
Okay, I'll make sure that that's in there next time. I thought it was.
You guys, usually we post it on the Cpdc website as well, so you can always get the link there.
Yep.
And it is sent out via an Outlook invite. I don't know if you use Outlook or not, but that's...
Yeah. Hold on. I use Outlook, and I haven't been getting that.
Yeah, me neither. And I do use Outlook also.
That's weird.
Yeah. I don't know if it's getting caught up somewhere.
Well, so like we're sending it to the emails we have for you via Outlook. Like so.
Yeah, I get them from you and Andrew, but that doesn't come through.
I'm gonna just have a little bit of a quick interruption, and I'm letting John in right now. Okay.
Hi.
Oh my goodness.
That's the best type of interruption.
Yeah, Cindy Lou Who there.
Say hi to everybody. We're about to get started. Okay. I'm going to bed soon. All right.
How old?
Almost 2.5.
My God.
My daughter is due in March. It'll be our first, so that's pretty cool.
Congrats.
Okay. So we have John, we have Tony, Rachel, Heather, Pam said she was going to join us, but we can get started. If you're ready, John.
Okay. And Nick is not.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. Yeah, Nick. He did say he would come.
Okay.
So.
We'll give it another minute.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's another minute. So let's get started. Call this meeting of CPDC to order.
Second.
Not a lot of folks, right? Everyone, I think, is probably here for an item. But Julie, do you want to go over the ground rules here for these Zoom meetings? That'd be great.
Sure, yeah, thank you, John. So this is the CPDC meeting of October 5th, 2020. The meeting is being recorded to the Zoom cloud, and it's also being recorded by RCTV, and it may be live streaming depending on what other scheduling they have tonight. The meeting's being hosted over Zoom. There are a few protocols that we generally follow with these kind of meetings, and one is to please remain muted unless you have been acknowledged by the chair and are providing some either board comment or public comment. The meeting tonight should be fairly straightforward, but there are also some other features on Zoom you can use if you need. If you're having a technical difficulty, you can use the chat feature and just chat me directly as the host. I would ask that you please refrain from chatting amongst yourselves since this is an open public meeting. And then if you have something you want to say, you can use the raise hand feature in Zoom, which should be next to your name in the participants tab, and you can raise your hand and that will alert me and John, the chair, that you want to say something. And then once you're acknowledged, you can speak. Other than that, I think that pretty much does it for me. Really quick from the CPDC, we have Chair John Weston, we have Rachel Hitch, Heather Klisch, Tony Diarezzo, Nick Safina, and there might be one more member joining us later tonight. And from staff, Julie Mercier, Community Development Director, and Andrew McNichol, Staff Planner. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Julie. You're getting that down now. I think the first item on the agenda is a special permit, correct?
Correct.
For a sign.
Yep, and I can share the legal ad on screen if someone can read it into the record.
I'll do that. Notice is hereby given that pursuant to sections 4.3, 8.5.6, and 8.6 of the Town Reading zoning bylaw, and in accordance with the MGL Chapter 48, Section 9, the Community Planning and Development Commission will hold a public hearing on Monday, October 5th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. through remote and online measures to consider the application submitted by Adnoli Sign Company on behalf of NHP Properties Business Trust Bear Mountain Healthcare for a special permit to allow a freestanding sign on a residentially zoned property located at 1364 Main Street, Assessor's Map 51, Lot 146 in Reading, Massachusetts. Copy of the application and the accompanying plans are available to the public at Town Hall by appointment and on the town website the Thursday prior to the hearing.
Thank you, John.
So do you want, Andrew, do you want to give a little bit of background on this?
Yeah, thank you. So this is an existing site, 1364 Main Street. It's switching ownership to Bear Mountain Healthcare, and they're simply looking to reface the existing sign. It's in the S20 zoning district, and so technically a freestanding sign in a residential zoning district needs a special permit issued by the CPDC. We couldn't find any records of that special permit, so we went ahead with the applicant who agreed that it would be good to get it on file for the future. I can share the plans on screen as well. We also have Harry Auerbach here with us to kind of summarize the proposed signage as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share that on screen. And Harry, if you could summarize the proposal, that would be great.
Certainly.
Sorry.
So before you start on that, I do, I think it's good for background that the town did change the sign bylaw at some point requiring this the special permit. We did for I I don't recall, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago. I may be off by a year or two, but there was a number of these that we knew were non-conforming to the new zoning bylaw, and we've sort of asked folks to come in and get that special permit so that there's no question that sign is complying. And generally, right, like I'm sure Harry will say that there's interest in making sure that the sign is meeting the guidelines, and so not trying to grill you, but just wanted to make sure that it's helpful for everyone to be on the same page and to have permits in place when 10 years from now there may be an issue. So that's the background.
Thank you, John. You can go ahead and summarize, Harry, if you can.
Okay, John, thank you for the explanation, because we were not aware, representing Bear Mountain Health, that the laws had changed, and obviously this is a perfect opportunity to become compliant. What you see here is an existing sign. That's the Wingate sign, and Wingate has now sold to Bear Mountain, and we are basically taking that sign off, putting a new sign on. Using the Bear Mountain logo, which is the bear inside the mountain, and trying to make it a little more upscale in the sense that these are their primary colors, the royal blue, and the letters Bear Mountain at Reading are raised. We call them dimensional, just to give it some cachet, if you will, and make it look a little nicer. And the logo is it's recessed. It's vinyl. It's on aluminum and with a molding, if you will, and attached to the existing brick wall. The size did not change. Obviously, the location hasn't changed, and obviously very important, since Wingate is no longer there. And Bear Mountain is, we need to call attention. And we hope, looking from Main Street, that this is a way of identifying the property. And this is their only sign.
I can pull up a map. Can you see the map as well, everybody? Or
Yep.
Great. So this is the sign location here. There's a number of sections in the bylaw that you would see summarized in the draft decision that relate to setbacks and the special permit criteria itself. But of course, if the board has any questions, then.
So any questions from the board? No,
I don't have any questions.
I think it's even more visible than the previous sign.
Thank you. Yes, I should have pointed that out. The white background, black trim, it doesn't blend into the background. So thank you for pointing that out.
Mm-hmm.
And then how you said the letters would be raised? How much is that?
They're 1/4 inch. They're acrylic letters. They're painted. They're mounted. So it's not. If somebody were to walk by, that's not like they would catch any clothing. In fact, the molding kind of protects that. It's just a way. I mean, we could have done just vinyl, but painted letter seems to last. Not seems. It will last longer. It's a better presentation.
Yep. And then the lighting associated with this.
We are. Well, the easiest way to say it is we're not involved with the lighting. It is not changing. It's ground illuminated. In the notes that Andrew, I believe, put forward, and from my colleague Amanda, the lights are on from dusk till dawn. It is a 24/7 facility. So having had a mother in a nursing home, it's good to illuminate and make sure people know where they are, especially as the fall comes. So
Can I ask if the current sign is illuminated? Does the lighting exist today?
I'll be honest with you. Well, to my understanding, yes, it is illuminated.
Okay.
Ground illumination, not internally.
If we don't have any questions, I can bring up the decision that we can run through.
Sure.
So this is, of course, everything that was submitted, including authorization for Agnoli Sign to act on behalf of Bear Mountain for this. As mentioned, the site is within the S20 zoning district. The special permit was granted in 1984 for the use, but as John mentioned, the sign bylaw has changed more recently than that with new requirements. That's why we're here. We wanted to make it clear that that is what was happening, that this was an existing sign simply being refaced for the special permit criteria. So there's a number of sections in the bylaw that are applicable to this sign, including signs in the residential zoning district in section 856 and table 86. The applicant has requested for such, of course. And again, footnote L of table 8.6 reads that legal non-conforming business is or commercial operations in any residential zoning districts that follow the Business B zoning district regulations as specified in subsection 853, except that such signs shall be set back a minimum of 20 feet from any other lot line and may be externally illuminated only during the hours of operation. The sign is set back more than 20 feet from all lines, as we saw in the map there. And as mentioned, the hours of illumination are only from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., so they should meet that criteria. And again, freestanding signs shall be permitted only where the principal business entrance is located more than 40 feet from the center line of the street in front of the lot. The Cpdc may waive the 40-foot business entrance setback requirement for signs in existence as of the effective date of this amendment. See subsection 859. The principal business is located more than 40 feet, so there's no need for a waiver for that. Again, here we summarize the setbacks and the hours of illumination, so I can remove this question that was just answered. And again, the signs by special permit. The CPDC may grant a special permit for a freestanding sign in the Business B or residential zoning districts if it finds that abutting properties are not unreasonably impacted by sign placement and that the sign will have no detrimental impact on traffic and pedestrian safety. The CPDC may consider the following when reviewing the special permit request: character of the surrounding neighborhood, the principal use of the property or business, the location of the parking, landscaping in the front yard setback, and the presence of other signs on the property. The site does directly abut the Business A zoning district. I believe it's Home Goods right to the south of it. And the sign location was existing and again chosen, as mentioned, to help pedestrians enter the site. So, and then we also have these special permit general criteria that apply to a special permit, of course. So if there's no questions on any of that, or if we didn't miss anything, if we did, please just let me know.
All looks good to me. And I trust, Andrew, that you all at Town Hall haven't had any complaints about illumination or anything. Okay. Safety issues.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead, Heather.
No, I answered my own question
Okay.
in my head. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I think we're, as long as our, I should look. Any questions from the public?
I don't see any hands raised from the board or the public
Okay.
at the time.
All right. So I
I think we would need a
to
motion to close the public
close the
hearing.
public hearing.
Yeah.
Motion to close the public hearing on,
Pull it. 1364.
1364 Main Street freestanding sign.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? No. All right. Then we're looking for a motion for the special permit.
Probably take a vote to close the hearing.
We just did.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, just the motion. I'm sorry. Getting ahead of myself.
No worries.
So we'll do this through roll call. This is vote to close the public hearing. We'll start with Heather,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
and Pam.
Yes.
Sorry, Tony.
It's known.
So now a motion on the special permit. Anyone?
Move to approve the special permit. Was it? It's gone now. 1364 Main Street, the freestanding sign.
Second.
All right. Again, roll call. Heather,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
John, yes. All right.
All right. So I will get you that decision as soon as I can, Harry, and we'll work to get you the permit.
Thank you. Just a question. Do we now, and thank you all for approving the special permit, do we need to still apply through you, Andrew, for the, or is it a special permit that gives us permission to actually move forward with the project?
We have your sign permit application, so I'll have to just let the building department know that we're all set, and then we should be pretty good to move forward. They'll check in with you.
Excellent. All right. We appreciate it very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
All right. Have a good evening.
You too.
Goodbye.
All right. Next on the agenda is, right, what did we have here?
Request.
Sorry.
Do you want us to pull up the agenda, John?
No, I'm trying to do that. And then I have like different screens open.
There's a continuance request for the 531 Main Street 40
Right.
project.
So remind me, Julie, I can just announce that we're continuing that, right?
You can, yeah. I believe if you want to be on the safe side, you could just have a motion to continue it as well and take a quick vote.
This is one that we've already continued by just continuing in the past, right?
This one, I'm not sure. This is the Chronicle Building project.
All right. Well, yeah, let's take a vote on that. So their request was to continue it to November 2nd at 8 p.m. I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right. Where do we start here? Start with Heather,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Tony. I'm sorry, Tony. Yeah, I have you on a list right here. Nick,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
John, yes.
Great.
So, do we want to have a discussion about 106 County Road? Is that the next item? I assume that's Jack. That's what Jack's here for.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right.
I can just give a quick.
Sure.
So the applicant, I believe we have at least one of the property owners with us tonight, Michael Gates, but he and Casey Gates came before us as staff the other day to kind of talk to us about the possibility of either subdividing the lot or going through the PRD process. And so, typically a proof plan that meets the subdivision regulations is required in both instances. And they don't quite meet that mark, but they still wanted to come to you and get your opinions about whether they have a project or not. And under the PRD bylaw, we do allow a pre-application conference. And so we scheduled that, and that's why they'll be here. They're here tonight to talk to you about it. So,
Julie, what's PRD?
So, sorry. Thank you. Yes, I should have clarified that. It means planned residential development. And it's a tool in the bylaws, towards the end of the bylaw. It's in section 11, and it actually requires applicants to come to CPDC, go through sort of a plan approval process, then actually go to town meeting to create an overlay district for their specific property, and then come back to CPDC for additional approvals. It's a lot of hoops to jump through. It's not a wonderful part of our bylaw, in my opinion. It exists nevertheless.
And I guess before we get into it, right, for background, have you, I guess, memory serves me that in my over a decade on the board, I think there was one property that I don't know if they made it all the way through, but I do know they started the process. Did that property go through?
Yes, it was actually right before I started working for the town. It was on Van Norden Road, and I believe he worked on that one, so he can speak to that more eloquently, but it did go through. I think it was a bit painful for the applicant, but they did get it, and they created a second lot, and they developed that second lot, and they got there. So
okay, I think that's the only other one in certainly in recent memory. So Rachel, it's not a common common occurrence. So
Thank you.
And Nick, I don't know if you know of any that have gone back even further.
No, I think we're all remembering the same one.
Yeah. Okay, so fairly rare. So with that, I don't know, Jack or Michael, if you guys want to start, whichever.
Sure, I can start. If Andrew, do you want to share your screen?
Yep. Oops, sorry, wrong one. You see that?
Yep, I can see it.
Yep.
Okay, so this is the property. This is 106 County Road. It's in the S20 zoning district. So that requires 120 feet of frontage for a lot, 20,000 square feet of area. So the existing lot's 1.565 acres, which translates to 68,000 square feet of land. That number is important because to qualify for PRD development, you need at least 60,000 square feet of land. So they exceed that threshold. They have 68,000 square feet. Typically, the project everyone's remembering is it was 149 Van Norden Road. It was like a 2.5 acre lot, and I had shown that a fully compliant subdivision could be constructed for 3 lots. And when we came to CPDC that number of years ago, it actually went forward as 2 lots. So the idea behind a PRD is that you still show a fully compliant subdivision. Then it can be scaled back. So let's say you show a fully compliant subdivision for 2 lots. Then you're allowed to scale it back, do away with constructing a full road, sidewalk, street lighting. You still have to put drainage in on the site, but it's basically a process that allows less impact to the land for smaller lots where maybe a full road with a fully blown out cul-de-sac and all the other features with curbing and sidewalk don't have to be built. It's something the town doesn't have to maintain long term, and it remains private. It's almost like you put in a glorified driveway for access to the homes. So in meeting with these clients, a 60-foot right-of-way could not work. We have 136 feet of frontage on County Road. We need at least 140 if we were going to do a 60-foot right-of-way. And you're also required to have 80 feet of lot width in the S20 zoning district for a compliant lot. With a 60-foot right-of-way, we're not able to do that. With a 50-foot right-of-way, we are, and we do have a fully compliant cul-de-sac. But this would be something new for the CPDC and the PRD, as we've heard tonight. Not some members know a little bit about it, some don't. So before my clients went to spend a lot of money, they like the area they're in, but you know, where it's a deep lot and they wanted to explore trying to get a second house out back. Julie and Andrew did mention to the clients, we did have a Zoom meeting prior to this, and mentioned that, you know, that you can apply for like an in-law, but that's not something they're interested in doing at this time. They'd like to see if there's some way to move forward with a second home on the lot. So the biggest hurdle is that you cannot prove a fully compliant conventional subdivision under your current subdivision rules and regulations. So before they go to spend some money, we want to see what the feeling of CPDC might be before we dig into this and they actually, you know, spend some money moving this up forward in the design process. But the idea would be we show a 50-foot right of way. You can see it's going through the house. So for two lots with a 50-foot right of way, the house would have to be removed. They'd be looking to retain the house and then basically pull the roadway out and build a driveway to the back for another house lot out back. That's basically it in a nutshell. I'll try to answer any questions you might have. And I know this is somewhat, usually you don't see this informally, but they'd have to spend some money to get to some sort of design point to either get some sense from the board. So we wanted to come in informally before they spend some serious money on this.
One question, I just wanted to make sure that I heard right. So, right, you have here, it shows on the screen a 50-foot right of way, but right, that goes right through the house where it's located now. The idea, if this were to move forward, is that you would want to, your plan would be to keep the existing house.
Correct.
And then build a narrow, more narrow driveway, have you in that space. You do have that dimensioned, right?
Yeah,
30 something feet.
It's 34 feet.
Wow. So yeah, to build a driveway within that 34 feet.
Or on the other side, we have 42 feet. Okay. So it would have to be one side or the other.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I understood what the request was.
Right. And the idea, we would have to prove to CPDC that, I'd have to locate mature trees on the property. I'd have to show some benefit where we could show, how much, what sort of how the site would be altered if we did do this full-blown development as opposed to a PRD and, reduction in tree removal, reduction in impervious surfaces, things like that. There'd have to be some benefit.
Wait, but you haven't proven that you can do the base PRD.
That's the problem. That's right. You're correct.
So I think there's there's two hurdles here with this. Is one, I'm going to say you need to convince this board that I don't know if they'd be waivers, but the non-standard right-of-way width, or the fact that you can't get a standard right-of-way width is okay and is of some benefit. But then there's another hurdle. Which I think is probably even greater, is you then need to go to town meeting and present that case as well. And so my experience at town meeting is that, you know, if we're providing, if this board is recommending some sort of less than standard approval, then usually there's some rationale, you know, behind it, and some, I'm going to say, public benefit. You know, whether that public benefit can be, you know,
I just lost my connection.
But that's, you need to cross over both hurdles, and I think that's going to be a difficult task on this. Others' thoughts?
Can I just ask that question? So, assuming that the driveway has to go on the side of the house, the bottom part here, because there's a pool up at the top, one of those squares is a pool. What are the rules? I mean, that would basically mean that the driveway has to go flush up to this property line. And is that even allowed to build a new driveway on the property line? But
Yeah, under the town's driveway regulations, there is no requirement for a setback off a property line with a driveway. Some towns do, like Lexington, you have to be 5 feet off a lot line with a driveway, but in Reading, they do not have a requirement. But obviously, there'd be concerns with drainage. We wouldn't want to be pushing drainage onto an abutting property, so we'd have to deal with that. So that would be an issue we'd have to look at if we get to that point.
Aside from the point that a right-of-way doesn't mean the extent of the roadway. Right? The roadway doesn't need to be the right-of-way.
No.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem here is that you just can't meet the basis for the PRD, after which we grant waivers to sort of alleviate some of those harsher conditions. But we only do that once somebody's proven the base position works.
Right, and that's what, when Julie and Andrew spoke with me and the client, we knew that. I knew going in that this would be a stretch, because in every other project I've
lost it.
Lost you.
Jack, we can't hear you.
One of the other problems too with this site, when I'm looking at the aerial here, is that there's a significant amount of clearing to be done to get both those properties in, and those are important buffers, I think, to the existing properties, and so I don't see how it would be more beneficial or less detrimental.
I was noticing the same thing, and I know
just no buffer.
It's similar. Well, it's kind of a related question, and understanding that the right-of-way doesn't necessarily mean the paving. And the right-of-way, as this is drawn, would take a pretty significant portion of the property, it looks like. And I guess I'm wondering if there's a ballpark of what portion of the property would need to be paved for that right-of-way.
That's what I was trying to.
Well, what ends up happening is that these are the rules, right? You have to be able to show that you can put a roadway right-of-way this big or bigger. And then once you've proven that, you can come back and ask for waivers or do some alternative things like we did on one of the other sites where it was basically just the width of a driveway, not the full roadway.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just a proof plan that says, look, I can meet the requirements, so I'm allowed to do this, worst case, right? Let's find a better solution. That's the goal of what was done at the other property we mentioned.
Yeah.
They wouldn't build this. They wouldn't build this cul-de-sac. They would build a driveway, essentially, up to the second house.
Just add one thing to what Nick said, though. Whatever the approved right-of-way ends up being, that actually is supposed to remain clear, though, because that technically the road layout that's providing frontage for that second lot. So, that could also become a challenge depending on where, if this were to go forward, whatever right-of-way width was approved, the house would need to be moved potentially, right? So that's another thing to think about.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to one thing that Julie said early on too, where she said the rules are difficult or the other applicant had a hard time. I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. I know that the PRD rules are, we don't like all of them. We certainly don't like how much pavement sometimes is required, but I don't know that it's a bad thing to say that it's difficult to jam some houses in, into a tight lot between a bunch of other houses that are already sort of spread out.
I'm in agreement with you on that. I mean, right, the rule was set up so that if you had the right to subdivide, sure, you could go ahead and subdivide, and at least with the PRD, you subdivide in a way that may be a little bit better for everyone instead of just following the rules blindly. But you still had that right. And I guess that's where I'm having a hard time on this, Michael, is that you don't have the property does not meet the rules to subdivide. So you don't have a lot that could just be subdivided. I mean, you just don't. It doesn't meet that threshold.
Right. The dimensions just aren't ideal.
Right. Right.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I think we heard from the board, and we appreciate your time and taking the time to look at this with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure,
we knew it was a bit of a shot in the dark, so thank you.
It's always worth a conversation. Yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you. All right, Julie, what else? What's the next item? Do we want to move to administrative rules or?
Yeah, I think that would be the next thing. So I sent around some documents. I think it was like in the afternoon on Thursday. We're trying to like plan ahead, I guess, for the continuation of restrictions because of COVID on our businesses in town. And so from a Cpdc and zoning standpoint, where you guys establish rules and regulations for privately owned land, I was like looking through the zoning bylaw and looking at administrative rules from almost a decade ago and trying to figure out, like, is there a path forward, which we kind of talked about when we looked at that COVID testing facility at New Crossing Road a couple months ago. And I will say that the applicant in that case is still working out the details. So that's why you haven't seen that spring up yet. But, and you were very clear that an administrative approval in that instance could be warranted if it's like directly COVID related and a medical facility. And that further thought should be given to outdoor commerce and dining and recreation on private land. So with that in mind, I'm trying to like figure out if there's some kind of process we can put in place or use, or some way we can try to streamline, just in anticipation that there's going to be a lot of requests coming. And like if we can get something in place soon, then we can do some outreach to the businesses and let them know what the process is, and try to get that geared up so that there's maybe a higher chance of business survival and ability to kind of pivot and, maintain some sort of semblance of, I don't know, I don't want to say normalcy, but that's what I'm getting at in the spring. So, of course, like anything, once I started looking into it, and, with Andrew's help, and I talked to Jean because she remembers some of the history, like everything that I could think of has some questions and complications. And the zoning bylaw is a big factor in the confusion for me. So what I really want to do is kind of, some of you have been on the board a long time and might remember like how we got to some of the things that we got to before, and that administrative rule that was created in 2011, like how that was, what the thinking behind that was. And I did look back at minutes from 2011, and it's funny because like a lot of the things in some of the minutes are like things we're still talking about today. So I had a little bit of a laugh about that. Like 9 years has really gone by and we're still talking about resurfacing Main Street. It's amazing. But just to kind of pick your brains and like understand a little bit about what happened in the past and which direction you think we should try to go in and what additional questions we should be asking and things we should be thinking about. So that's a long-winded way of saying, do you want me to screen share what I've put together or?
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Let me just pull up the, just one second. So I like to start by kind of outlining like what the challenges are and try to figure out from there like which way to go. So that's kind of what I did. And I'll just screen share the document that's kind of outlining some of the challenges. Do you guys all see this in a good readable size?
Yep.
Okay. So, okay, where do I start? We started and we looked in the bylaw. So we found this admin rule from 2011, which talked about open storage and outdoor events. So then I'm like, okay, how do we define open storage? And it's okay. It could kind of get to somewhere that we want to go.
Can I interrupt, Julie?
Yeah,
yeah. Before you get to that, right? You had in your mind some conditions which you're thinking that might be appropriate on a temporary basis, right? During the spring whenever we get to something where it feels more normal. So can you, before we sort of dive into sort of the challenges, can you just make sure that you outline like your thoughts on the types of uses that you're thinking might be appropriate in this odd time?
Yeah. Okay. Sure. That's great. Thank you for backing me up a little bit. So I'm thinking about, and like, just to clarify for everybody, like, so there are two big buckets that I see, right? So there's private land and things that happen in like private parking lots or green spaces that are owned privately, that relate to things that are already happening on site inside a building, right? And then there's the public, right? So then there's the sidewalks, the public lots, the streets, and that is not what we're talking about tonight because that's not your jurisdiction. That's the select board jurisdiction, and that's a whole other set of permits and processes and that we're also working on, but that's not for tonight. So what I'm thinking of is like the example of a fitness center that wants to use like part of a parking lot or a green space on their private lot for like an outdoor yoga class. And it's not something that was necessarily technically considered when they came through site plan review, right? So that's one instance. So rather than maybe having them come through some sort of minor modification for their site plan review, is there another way we could allow it temporarily with a little bit less red tape and be a little bit more of a flexible, have a more of a flexible, quicker approach, right? And then another instance would be an entity that wanted to have like open storage. I guess it's not a great term, but like some kind of sale of something. And I think, I don't want to use the Home Depot example of like their outdoor plant sale, but that like is kind of what comes to mind. I mean, that's on a really, really big scale, but just some flexibility for a business like REI, for example, to put out a rack, to use a couple parking spaces if they need to, so those are some kinds of things I was thinking about, so that we wouldn't have to necessarily be like, we have to take enforcement against you because you're violating your site plan. And we could say instead, if you want to do this, here's a process by which we'll allow it for this temporary period of time.
And Julie, if I may, just to understand the parameters of what we're discussing, are there's two examples you gave that are basically like an outdoor retail use or an outdoor fitness use. Are those kind of the two categories? Is outdoor dining kind of covered already by things that allow outdoor dining, or should we be thinking about that also?
So that's a really good question. And that's like the third thing. And so I can give an example of that, like Fusilli's.
Yeah.
In Business A, if they wanted to use their parking lot for outdoor dining. But there's a little bit of a, well, so the Board of Health had an order that they put in place maybe in June or May, or I don't know, time is, time, where they basically suspended the enforcement of parking regulations under zoning for a period of time. And I believe it's set to expire in November. And what that does is it allows people to, it was specifically for outdoor dining, right? So not outdoor commerce, retail, recreation, just for dining. And that would enable, like Fusilli's right now, if they wanted to have outdoor dining, they could. And what they would do is they would submit a plan to the town staff, and then we have this internal group that meets every week, and we would look at it and just make sure from a circulation and public safety standpoint, it would be okay, right? That we've been told by town council that really shouldn't never have happened. Like, they are not really in favor of us doing that. And I know I did put it as like a potential thing to consider going forward, like if we could do that on a broader scale, because I do think it can be helpful in some circumstances, but we have been told by town council that that's probably not the best way to go forward. So that is going to run out, and it probably will not be renewed. And so outdoor dining would be another thing that we might want to consider. So does that kind of like lay the groundwork for what we're talking about?
Does for me.
Okay. So basically I'll just go back to kind of like, this is what we're thinking in our minds. And I think partly it's like, because we see it in lots of towns, and the town I live in, I see it every day. And I see that it's happening other places. And we have started to do some digging to kind of figure out what other towns are doing, to see if there's anything that like would be easily applicable in our case here in Reading. But so what I want to do is just see also if we have something on the books that we can use, if it just needs a slight modification, if it's, could be relevant today. So we look through the zoning bylaw, we look at definitions, we see open storage is kind of like the closest thing. The definition of open storage is kind of the closest thing to what we're talking about. And there isn't really another good definition or use category that kind of talks about this. But it's not perfect. It's really only talking about the sale of retail goods. It's not including recreation, it's not including dining. The other challenge with this is that it's explicitly not allowed in Business B, which is our downtown and is our REI area. So that's another hurdle. And I don't know why that is the case exactly, but I'm sure someone can chime in on that. And then restaurant is okay the way it's defined. It includes indoor and outdoor seating, so that one's okay. And then we don't really have any definitions or uses that capture outdoor recreation. So it's not really currently contemplated in the bylaw. And then another challenge, again, like I mentioned, the downtown, in the existing administrative rule, we do include Business B, but in the zoning, Business B is not included. Is open storage is not allowed for Business B. So that's a little confusing, and I don't know. It's my understanding of administrative rules is that we ultimately get the power to do something administratively from the zoning bylaw. So how we could add that in is something we could allow administratively when it's clearly not allowed in the zoning bylaw. I'm not sure how that happened. So one thing I was thinking is the downtown Business B district also has the downtown smart growth district overlay over it. So is there some way we could have whatever it is we decide to allow applicable to the downtown smart growth district and capture that area? And that's another challenge, because typically that's not how overlay districts really work. So we can get into more details as we go, but that's a challenge. And then I was looking at like the different processes, and site plan review in the bylaw is the only tool that we have explicitly that gives staff an administrative capacity. Site plans are tricky because they're not discretionary. So, and they're also typically not temporary in my experience. So that's that basically means if they're not discretionary, that everything that comes before us would get approved. It could be conditioned, but it would get approved. So, and I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing or a good thing, but just food for thought. And then another reason why site plan review might not be a great tool to use in this case is that the zoning bylaw only allows open storage by special permit. So if we're talking about open storage, we really need to be talking about special permits. So that's why maybe the administrative rule is for a special permit. But then again, there's a big question in my mind with the special permit process. Is it actually legal for staff to issue a temporary special permit and avoid noticing and public hearing requirements? I don't know. I've never done it before, but it seems like it was something that was allowed in Reading 10 years ago or 9 years ago. And so any history you guys have of that would be really helpful. And then with special permits, they're discretionary. So that's another thing that would be tricky for staff to be making the call. Like for one business can do it, but another business can't. So we would have to have really good parameters about what we're talking about and what we would want to allow if it's going to be something that staff do that's just discretionary. Okay, so that kind of gives you the lay of the land. And then I was thinking about like ways we could try to move forward with this. So revising the administrative rule, which I have in a separate document and it looks really bloody, but I'll try to just keep that simple if possible when we talk about it. And then if we do revise it, some things I mentioned, like seeing whether we can talk about the downtown in terms of the downtown smart growth district rather than business B. I would need to probably run some of my statutory questions by town council. And then, like I mentioned, open storage only applies to retail sales. So we'd need some other considerations. It does seem like it could be possible to add restaurant to it, since restaurant does include outdoor seating, and it's a use that's allowed in all of these districts, right? So that could be something maybe that could be added. And then again, path 2, which I think is probably the ship has sailed on, so we'll just skip that for now. And then path 3 is there something here that really warrants a zoning bylaw amendment at April town meeting? And April town meeting may not be too super late for things to still fall into place for some businesses if we were able to do something a little bit, just clear up like why open storage isn't allowed in business B or other things like that. And I think there again, though, we'd have to be really careful to make sure that whatever it is we propose could be something that could apply all the time. I'm not sure there's a way to have like a temporary zoning bylaw amendment. But that there again might just be like my lack of experience, and there may be totally an easy way to do that I just don't know about. So any questions right now?
Well, we have the weather here, right, which is automatically going to take a third of the year away regardless, maybe a little more. So as far as temporary goes, right, some of these things just wouldn't be feasible in the winter, in the middle of winter anyways.
Yeah, to build off of that, when I first read this, Julie, I was thinking, oh, April is so far away. But, if let's think about outdoor dining, right? When the Board of Health action expires in November, which I think is what you had said, that's fine, right? It's sort of fine because no one's dining outside until April anyways. So, I think that I think we should think about that, of whether we can sort of leverage this period here and bring something to town meeting. Because that's actually the right timing, right? I guess a couple of thoughts that I have. One is a downtown overlay district. I like your your trying your reach. I have two things that come to mind. One is if we were to change sort of things associated with that, doesn't that need to go through through the state? Like the design guidelines had to go through the state. I would imagine anything else we change would have to as well. And then, there's only, as a property owner, right, you have a choice. You can either, conform to the, the downtown overlay district or the base zoning. And there's some that have done both. And the ones that are using the base zoning, I don't think, like, you can say, oh, well, my building uses the base zoning, but my temporarily uses the overlay district. I find that as I'm having a hard time sort of doing the mental gymnastics for that.
Yeah, therein lies the challenge.
Yeah, I guess, as I was thinking about this today, I guess my real question is, we do have until April, right? I mean, till any of this happens, there is a period of time there. We do want to be responsive, but there's 6 months there, and so I don't think that we're in the same position now as we were last April, when no one knew what was going on and no one had time to think about it, and we were just trying, or even this summer, right? But by this point, I would think business owners are trying to think about what they can do next April, and should be coming to you sooner than April 1st and asking you what you can do April 15th. So with that said, I'm just wondering whether, what are the requirements for minor site plan review, right? I mean, there's some minor site plan amendments that can be done by staff if we, there's an agreement to. And I guess going back to the Home Depot example, right? I do think, and I may be wrong on this, but I do think that there are some site plans where we have agreed to temporary use of a part of the site for, if it meets certain conditions, right? Like Home Depot.
Right.
So,
That actually, can I just jump in really?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So in the admin rule, it was for open storage and outdoor events, right? Where you could get a temporary special permit for. And I think that's been the tool that was used for, like, the, Jean mentioned a couple examples of things that happen at the Home Depot property.
Yeah.
The issue I have with that is that outdoor event is not defined anywhere in the bylaw. And I want you guys to tell me that not everything that we do has to claw back to the bylaw, but it does seem to me like it probably should. So that's like can we make up definitions and terms and things that are like outside of the bylaw and let staff approve them? I don't know.
Well, right. I guess there's two different things there, right? One was the administrative rule for temporary events and outdoor storage, right? But then there's also a minor amendment to your site plan that says temporarily, I'm going to do this on an interim basis, and and I wouldn't single anyone out, but right, I guess I don't want to, right? But if there's if there's a gym that wants to put their bikes outside, right, in come April, or having a minor site plan amendment that says, yeah, you can put your bikes outside, and here are the parameters you're going to meet, and you're going to, you can't keep them out there more than 3 months at a time, or it has to be a state of emergency to do it, or I don't know, I'm making stuff up, but I think that the reason why I'm going back to that is because there's a couple of things that I think that this board as a whole agrees that we need to do for these types of things. And one is make sure that they're safe, and make sure that the neighbors in the neighborhood have some visibility on things that are going to change that may impact them. And I can probably think of another one or two, but those are the two things that jump out at me universally that we do. And so especially the second one means that, I think there's only limited things that we would probably want to do that doesn't have that public face to it.
Okay.
But others can have other opinions on this, but I'm just trying to think about how we, so that we're not doing all these gymnastics to approve something that maybe we just need to set up. I know, Julie, you and I had a discussion earlier, like back in the spring, about we don't have anything to allow. We've never in town, right, except for the one special permit, done anything on it, allowed any process on a temporary basis. And maybe that's what we need to do for the spring is how do we do things, how do we allow things to happen on a temporary basis, whether it's COVID related or not, so that people can do pop-up stuff.
Yeah, I think that's good. I guess I would say like a minor site plan review, which allows for an administrative approval and or not, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe in this case, we would do the full thing and notify abutters, but it's like site plan review is not statutory, so we could have a little bit more compressed time frame if we need to, but we would still do notification of some sort to abutters. I think that depending on what it is that we say and how we word it, it might be possible to put together some kind of administrative rule that ties back to that doesn't have to trigger a zoning bylaw amendment. But I just have to give that more thought. I don't want to say that. Don't take that to the bank. And then one specific challenge I think is actually that we would maybe need to get away from the definition of open storage, or try to figure something else out there, because that actually is allowed by special permit. So we'd need to kind of figure that one out. But I like the thought process. So.
May I offer a suggestion for getting away from open storage?
Please.
Under section 5.4 accessory uses, it states that accessory uses, building and structures shall be permitted on the same lot as the principal use. It doesn't say an accessory use has to be within a building. 541, in any district, no accessory use that alters the character of the premises in which it is located shall be permitted. And 5.42, in any district, an accessory use shall be located on the same lot as the principal use. Therefore, we could classify all of these extensions into open area, be it a parking lot, green space, whatever, as an accessory use.
And then
Yeah,
what's
my
the
thinking was
approval
that was the
process?
way around it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, but no, go ahead.
Just the question about whether if a building or lot was zoned under DSDG versus the underlying zoning, I didn't think that would matter if what you were approving was a special permit for a use, for temporary use. As long as that conforms, you can do that anywhere. Temporary use isn't tied to the zoning or the underlying zoning, the overlay, necessarily.
Well, so the downtown smart growth district, actually, to get back to a comment that was made about potentially needing to go back to the state, the downtown smart growth district does just kind of blanketly allow accessory uses that are related to something that's happening on the property already. So seems like it gives a lot of flexibility. I mean, obviously, I have a good relationship with the people at the state that work for 4ER, and I would run everything by them anyway and just make sure. And this might maybe neither here nor there at this point in the conversation, but it is a little bit more permissible in that regard than just like the outright, no, we do not allow open storage in business B in section 5 of the bylaw. So
just going back to that, I do think, I don't know, maybe I don't remember this correctly, but I thought that the whole notion of the prohibition of open storage in downtown was specifically about folks rolling out their racks of clothes up and down Main Street and having it be like a bazaar, and I'm pretty sure that was the thought that went into that, is that to have it somewhat more contained and not just have it sort of free flow between the public's the private space and the public space, even though all the racks of clothes would have to be on your private space, to have it that more of that look. Nick, do you remember that at all?
I don't. I'm trying to think back, but I can't recall the discussion.
Yeah.
I looked for the discussion in the minutes and I couldn't find it. I was trying to get some insight.
Yeah, that's my only recollection, is that I'm pretty sure that was sort of the underlying thought behind it.
So
John, I agree. That was the thought process, but I'm just thinking about Business B downtown. There's not that much privately owned land that you could do it with.
You're
Virtually
right.
everything is public.
Yep, that's correct. I was thinking about that a lot, over the weekend. Whether if we just went forward and left Business B and downtown smart growth district out, is that a big deal? But I do think that, I know of actually a couple examples of private lots in the downtown smart growth district in the Business B that have some ideas. And so I don't know of that many yet, but 2 of the ones I know about would be impacted if we left them out.
Yeah.
So there aren't that many, though, to Tony's point.
I am kind of intrigued by looking more closely at what's allowed for accessory uses. I do note that accessory use is also not defined in our bylaw. Accessory structures and buildings are. So, that may be a fix, but accessory uses are allowed by right wherever the use is. So maybe it's a pairing of, and I clearly wasn't involved or around when the open storage component was created, but I could see wanting to get hands around open storage as a distinct use, that you just don't want to have all this stuff hanging outside that may be just like a step beyond an accessory use. That's all just kind of hypothetical. So maybe we look at that and then look and see, okay, where are the gaps that we need to either be sure that we're not opening a can of worms for the long term that we may need to tighten up, or where we're not capturing what somebody really is making a reasonable request to do in this time of needing to do a lot of things outside.
So I just want to chime in on that because I do hear what you're saying about accessory uses, but I also want to point out that open storage is listed in the accessory use table.
Oh,
so it's like a little bit of gymnastics in a sense if we say okay, because it's the way it's defined and how it's in the accessory use table and not allowed in certain places. If we,
Right, there's a whole table for accessory uses.
yeah, so that's
Yeah.
like part of the challenge, because if it weren't so, it's like we might be directly contradicting ourselves if we say, okay, well, forget about open storage, but we're going to allow a very similar thing as an accessory use. It's just, yeah, messy.
I'm just, again, trying to think back. There was also, and I don't think it was in this same time period, but there was an issue for a little while about, I'm going to say, the proliferation of Netflix box. No, it wasn't Netflix. It was Redbox, right? How quickly we forget. But there were, for a little while, there were a number of those kinds of things just popping up. And we didn't seem to have much control over them. And I know that for a period of time that was a concern, and that concern may have intersected exactly when we were putting different rules together, and those seem to have disappeared in terms of their proliferation. So.
So we can give this another look and try to, if you think that we should look at minor site plan and accessory uses, and potentially whether we might want to modify the zoning bylaw and sort of go in that direction versus like going in the direction of modifying the administrative rule from 2011. Then I won't even have to pull that up on the screen. We don't have to talk about it.
I guess I'm in favor of seeing, if the minor site plan, and if we need to make a fix at April town meeting, to try and change definitions or what have you, then I guess I would be in favor of that, because I do think this isn't only a COVID-19 era issue. I think that we can and should be thinking about this as, sort of temporary uses that that business owners may want to do that right now they can't do, and they may be fine as long as they meet certain parameters. And we should be thinking about that stuff anyways. COVID or no COVID.
I agree.
And I think that I was just going to ask a question, but I think I answered it in my head. But what I was going to ask is, some of you probably remember, like before COVID, we were actually looking at the use table and all the definitions. And I think that since zoning usually is done at November town meeting, I think that we would want to continue that effort for November town meeting and do this April thing maybe as a separate, so as not to confuse the two either.
A surgical change, right?
Yeah.
For April, yes.
Yep. Okay. So if you agree with that approach, then we'll focus on this and save the rest for November, like next November.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. This is really great input. If you guys have any dreams about this and think of anything else, or nightmares from the past, please let me know.
My only concern, Julie, is I'll go with REI. They have a garage sale twice a year, and that parking lot is packed. People are parking all over the place. They can't get in. My only concern would be that we're in one of these site plan reviews, there should be some sort of restriction to say, listen, if you're going to have such a big event, you need to adjust for the parking, and it may have to come to a full site plan review if it's going to be too big.
So is that something they're already doing, or is that a vision you're having?
No,
That's a vision. It's a vision I'm having for an outdoor garage sale.
But
If they
REI does that once or twice a year. That's not permitted. The parking spills over into Mandarin, Reading, and onto the streets surrounding that area. And I know that there has been a little back and forth. I'm surprised you haven't heard, right? There's been a little back and forth between Mandarin and REI when that occurs on a Saturday.
I'm blissfully unaware about that.
So it's something that all the REI stores do a couple times a year. And what I hear Tony saying is that, I don't think folks would be happy if that then became the norm because they were doing a lot of stuff outside. Yeah. But it's a very big, busy event, which is probably drawing a lot of cars.
Right, which currently is limited to the size of the store. Imagine if you take a quarter of the store and put it outside.
Yeah.
Your event is even larger with even less parking. So if REI was smart, they'd get an agreement with, say, the Goddard School, which would probably have significant parking.
Well, people park over there regardless.
Yeah.
When that happens, that parking lot's full. I do, Tony, you may or may not recall, but I do think that Home Depot proposed some event that was the concern, to the degree that I don't think they ended up doing it because they're going to take so much of their parking lot away. There's some NASCAR race car thing that they're going to bring race cars and present, have them outside and take up all the parking. And I think we ended up putting the kibosh on it because it just would spill over too much.
Right.
So was that one that came, I heard that discussed and I thought that maybe that came in as a temporary special permit for an outdoor event that was done by staff. But was that not the way
that came before that special permit process happened.
All right.
I think that may have actually been part of what instigated that.
Okay. Yeah, there's always something, right?
Right. Yep.
Pandemic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is great feedback. So we'll keep working on this and bring something back for discussion. We do have a busy agenda on November 2nd, so might not fit then. The tentative meeting on October 19th looks like it won't be needed unless you want us to bring something back to you on this to talk about if it is going to be a zoning bylaw amendment. We probably do want to try to have that conversation sooner than later, since we'll have to go through all the public hearing and advertising and all that kind of stuff to get ready for April before the warrant closes. So what do you want to keep the October 19th meeting and we'll try to bring something on this back to you, or?
Let's keep that. And then Julie, you and I can talk about sort of where you are with that and
okay.
If that makes sense to keep it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's because, the April town meeting timeframe does get shorter when you consider the warrant closes in February and the public hearings have to happen in January, and November and December are full of holidays. So, all right, we'll figure it out. So, minutes, should we do minutes?
Should be in the drive. I don't know if everyone got to see them, but I can also share them on screen as soon as 1 second. These are the 9 minutes.
I have old eyes, Andrew. Old, tired eyes.
And I was completely muted when I was saying all of that, wasn't I? Page 2, the second to last paragraph.
Yep.
Damn it. I have to remember everything I said. The second sentence says that they arranged the cars that way. It was designed to ensure safe traffic flow, but that's not true. That was designed, they put the queue on the left side because it was a longer queue because of the shape of the parking lot.
Okay.
So it was designed to maximize the parking queue.
Thank you.
I have no other comments on this one.
Nor do I.
I'm good.
Same here.
Rachel, that leaves you. You good?
I wasn't at that meeting, so.
Okay. then we have, right, is that what you were bringing up, the next one?
Yep. So these were highlighted because even in the Zoom chat or attendance record, they didn't have their last names included. So it's hard to get everybody's last name. And I'll try searching the GIS a bit more if we can, if they stated their address, but I was having some trouble finding these last names.
Why don't you just state that in parentheses or something at the end?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if that's like an option.
Tell everybody to type their full name in the chat.
Yeah,
So actually, technically, we can't do that unless they want to speak. We can't require people to tell us who they are.
Okay.
Yeah. So we ask sometimes, but if people don't respond, we've been informed that unless they speak on the record, they don't have to identify themselves.
I found even when they speak, they're not always stating their full name and address, so that makes it tough as well.
Yeah, you might, you might just want to put an asterisk next to their name and note that their last names were not given in the Zoom chat.
Okay.
The realities that we're dealing with here.
That makes sense. That's a good plan.
Just say it like it was.
We as a committee need to be better at asking people to state their name and address when they speak.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew, page 2.
Yep.
Fourth paragraph from the bottom starts, Mrs. Tiscades stated the parking area.
Sorry, you said page 2?
Page 2, fourth paragraph from the bottom.
Yep.
Yep. Second to last line, first word. Nope, one more. Move over to the left and down. Keep going to the left. The word bet.
Yep.
Should be bit.
Gotcha. Good catch. Scroll back up a bit in case anyone didn't read that first part.
Just wanted to note that the previous meeting minutes have the wrong date on them.
Good catch.
On page 3, the paragraph that begins is sort of in the middle of the page, Ms. Leslie P. The third to the last line in the middle, it says Mr. Weston added the building could be used by a commercial entity under the same use category allowed. I think, well, first of all, deleting allowed, but I think it should say zoning use category.
And then in the next paragraph there, the middle line, right there, toward the end, a CPDC approval before conservation poised any issues should just be posed.
Good catch.
Andrew, I'm going to ask for clarification on page 5.
Yep.
About 2/3 of the way down, it starts with Ms. Hitch opined there are more questions than answers. That waivers should be voted on tonight. Is that should not be voted on tonight?
Right. I think that's correct. Go up and highlight this. I have to find the owner's name.
So the only thing, can we just scroll to 8? I know we're not there yet.
Yep.
Kind of the end of this discussion. I think Heather and I put together like a summary of next steps that I don't feel like are represented in here.
Okay.
I wish I remember what they were.
Good catch, and I don't remember what it was either. You probably did a better job than me.
But there was basically kind of an overview of what we were, they were going to look into a certain thing. They were going to bring us back some new renderings. There was, the conversation right there about the loading zones and parking. I think we gave them a handful of to-dos before they came back, and I just don't see them anywhere in this discussion.
Okay, I'll go back to the meeting and add in.
Right, like they were going to maybe like remove a story even. I mean, like big.
With that being said, I'm wondering if we should hold off from approving this set.
Yeah, that makes
right,
sense.
because if what we were asking for, I want to make sure that that's right in here or documented the right way. So
okay,
I'm not sure. Right. I mean, I wasn't there, so I'm I don't know, but I'm going to guess that we're going to want to make sure that that set of requests was accurate.
Okay.
Documented.
Double check that video.
Thank you.
I will say on this. There was one. Maybe I just closed it. I think it was on the top of page. Hold on. Yeah, on the top of page 5, And again, I don't have on this. I don't have a specific wording, and maybe you can just go back and look at this. Is it just? It doesn't. I'm not sure what's trying to be said, but there's a couple sentences in there that just don't make sense. Something about silt. The silt indicates flow is being brought in.
Okay.
Stated that the behind the areas of the proposed lots run in something. Yeah.
Okay.
What he was trying to tell us was that the pipe that is filled with silt is going to be replaced with a box culvert.
Correct. Yeah, there's a pipe that got overfilled, causing problems.
Yeah, and we did talk somewhere in there. We talked about how that does indicate that there's some flow.
Okay, I'll go back on the video on that too and reword that a bit.
All right.
I have some notes too, Andrew, and I can look at these as well.
Okay. All right, so we can.
Okay, with that, so right, we just want to approve the meeting minutes from 9/9.
Yep.
Did I hear someone make that
Do you
motion?
need a motion?
Yeah.
I move that we approve the minutes from September 9th, 2020,
That's amended.
as amended.
Second.
All those in favor, say yes and raise your hand.
Yes.
I'm abstaining.
Okay, one abstaining. No no's, because that's all of us. All right, what do we have next, Julie? What's or Andrew? Is there something else on the list?
I don't think so. We do. I'll just give you a quick update on some planning things. So you may have seen some outreach and your water bill, which mentioned that we have an economic development summit happening on Wednesday evening. I think it starts at 5:30. Is that right, Andrew?
I believe that's right.
Okay. So if you go on, we can send you the link if you can't find it, but if you go on the economic development webpage, it should be on there. If you're interested in joining, there'll be 3 speakers of different backgrounds. And there's been some swag put together that kind of advertises it. I can't speak that eloquently about it because I haven't been that involved in it. So I'm going to stop right now. So what else? Andrew, what else is going on?
We had a neighborhood meeting with Green International on the conceptual corridor analysis and redesign. So that went pretty well. A good number of neighbors showed up, but we might also be presenting it at a future select board meeting. So those plans are also posted online, as well as the meeting recording will be as well if you're interested in seeing how that went.
This is the intersection, the Lake Street intersection, or no?
You have
Lakeview.
And the Walkersbrook corridor was also looked at, as well as Ash Street intersection, the John Street corridor, and the Washington Street corridor. So there's quite a high level of involvement in that.
The Ash Main Bolton intersection.
Yes.
Intersection he's talking about. The big worst intersection in the world, as some people call it.
So I actually had a question about that. Why was the only options to take the Jiffy Lube Burger King area and not the other major issue, which is the drive-through exit entrance for McDonald's, which also corrodes that area with traffic. I mean, and that just like that area also would create some space for the end of that street there as well. I just didn't know if you guys brought that up during the meeting.
I don't recall specifically mentioning any takings at McDonald's or any redevelopment of that site. So it's a good thought, but I don't think it was in the scope of work for this project.
I think the problem with the McDonald's is the fact that you have to cross the train tracks, and that's the huge issue.
Right.
That's why everything was trying to push a connection before the train tracks to Main Street.
Right, and eliminate the crossing.
Yeah, that's the answer.
Yeah, that it still exits in the same zone. So you've got between those two, Ash Street and whatever the name of the street is, that Bolton, I guess it. And then, the drive-through are all three kind of exiting into the same spot, basically. So I feel like it should have been considered as part of the mess.
Julie, another question about that. I was walking the lake, and I guess there's a proposal for 485 residential units at the current Converse in Wakefield.
I knew it. I knew it. I spotted that. I knew it was going to happen.
I don't know if that was taken into consideration when reviewing the Walker's Brook Drive traffic studies.
I would venture to guess probably not. Those are both good points, Rachel's point and Tony's point. Those are both good points we can bring back up with the consultant.
That'd be interesting to see if that happens, because the Lake group was pretty opposed to some of the science tenants that were looking at that building. Or there was concern that having to rework the zoning to get some of the science tenants in there would have been met with resistance as well.
You have to pick your poison, right? So all from us. Well, the open space plan is chugging along, and there'll be a survey coming out soon. And Heather's been serving on the open space working group with us. So keep your eyes open for that. It should be coming out in the next week or so.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Julie found out what I did for work. And I was like, sure, I can do this.
You told me. I don't do any Googling, and I'm not on social media. I think you told me.
This is my signature, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that we're just busy, very busy doing lots of things, catching up on things, but those are the big highlights. So.
All right. Great. Thank you.
See you guys on the 19th if we decide to go ahead with that meeting. So thanks so much.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So motion to adjourn. Anyone?
Motion to adjourn.
All right. I heard a second. All in favor? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All righty. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.